Wow, what a challenging video this is to get through without saying something politically incorrect or just a litany of four-letter words. Because it's a really hot topic, and you're dealing with Hollywood actors who are just the dumbest MFers on earth. But like they've never heard an opinion that counters their opinion. So let me rebut this argument pretty simply with three main points. They're making hay out of this recent Salvador Ramos shooting in Texas, and they're trying to make some political mileage out of this. If anything, you're going to go the opposite direction from what they're trying to say. So the first point is, after the 2020 riots, nobody's going to give up their liberty devices, because one, you see that America has got a lot of very, very dangerous people who will riot and do very bad things. The first night of the George Floyd, be careful here, civil disturbance, 4 BLM guys snuggled 2 girls, deleted one of them, and there's a Ring doorbell footage of one girl running from her attackers naked, trying to get help. That was the first night of the riot. So, like, the riots are the voice of the unheard. Yeah, except January 6th in Charlottesville. So, no, it's like they're not, and just keep in mind, like the core of this that started at least the 2020 riots was George Floyd, who was a junkie who did a home invasion on a woman, and now he's an icon. Well, let me tell you, it doesn't take a political genius to say a society that idolizes a junkie home invader is not a society that's destined for greatness. You're pulling down statues and icons of guys who actually accomplished something and replacing them with a junkie felon home invader who attacked a woman. That's is that just like Sodom and Gomorrah, peak Weimar? Yeah, of course it is. It's a society that is doomed for failure, which is exactly what you're going to see. So that's the first point. After 2020 riots, nobody's giving up their liberty devices. There's 500 million in America right now, and with 3D printers, I think you can print everything but the hardened rifled barrel part. But there's probably ways to get around that. I mean, you can, if you want to badly enough, you can do almost all of it yourself. But the thing is, they're already in America, so you want to criminalize that. Most of the people, go to Detroit and Chicago and confiscate those liberty devices. Good luck with that. That's a tough sell. It's Australia and the UK. They were never a liberty device culture. And they just didn't have the numbers that America. Oh, I'm going to give up my classical Webley. It's like, all right, whatever. America's different. America's just wired differently. Even the people who come here quickly kind of jump on board that. Oh, I kind of like the idea of having something to, when the barbarian is at the gate, it's kind of nice to have something that at least offers up a first line of defense very effectively. Something that goes bang and makes a loud flash tells people pretty clearly that you're not a defenseless, you're not a soft target, you're a very hard target. So people like that, and most people are not going to give that up, especially when the message is coming from people like politicians and media who literally have armed guards and live in gated communities. So it's very, very challenging to talk about this without just losing my effing mind. I mean, these people are hypocrites. The same politicians who are surrounded by armed guards want you to give up your liberty devices. It's like, oh, the founding fathers had you in mind when they talked about you. So that's the first point. The second point is these idiots who live in, I don't know what the color of the sky is in their world, is probably cocaine fueled. So what happened with Salvador Ramos is he goes to this to Texas school, fires shots outside. It's 50 minutes before the cops even show up. That's weird. Gosh, that's really strange. Really activates the elements that it takes 50 minutes for the cops to show up. Should have been minutes. You hear shots at a school. Minutes away, the place should be starting to flood with cars. And the first guy on the scene, as per federal guidelines post-Columbine, you go in with what you got. You've got training. He doesn't. You've got everything on your person and in the car that you need to go in and engage this person, get rid of him, and then start applying first aid and triage the wounded. That's the federal guidelines post-Columbine. So it takes time for the cops to arrive. And then once they arrive, they wait 50 minutes. They effectively call the cops. The cops calls a tactical unit, SWAT, to arrive. And, oddly enough, 40% of this town's budget goes to police. Tells you a lot about the town. It's obviously it's a high crime town. A very, very high crime town. So the cops sit around waiting for other cops to show up in violation of federal guidelines. That's insane. It's as if they wanted what happened to have happened because they violated federal guidelines. And in fact, some people actually snuck in past the cops to rescue their kids and pull them out, while the cops stood around outside. None of that makes sense, man. My point being, I mean, there's a lot more to that, but Google has a narrative, and if you go against Google's narrative, they'll just get rid of you. Even if their narrative is wrong at the time, it doesn't matter. It's like they have a narrative to abide by. So that, does it glow from orbit? I'm not saying that the initial scene is like the shooter was known to the FBI. So glowing from orbit means, it can mean a lot of different things. It can mean that the entire thing was a setup. It doesn't necessarily mean that in this case. It just means they took advantage of a situation because they knew they were going to try to get political mileage out of this to repeal the Second Amendment. Yeah, repeal the 13th, 14th amendments, and 19th Amendment while you're at it. You want to do that? I mean, once you start putting this stuff on the table. So, like, does it glow? Yeah, a little bit. And I'm not a conspiracy. I'm not into conspiracies. And, like, there's been a lot of other events like this. And I always thought they were mostly organic without facts to the contrary. But this, I'm actually followed it right from the beginning. I looking at this goes, this is not looking good. And I mean for America as a whole. This is not looking good for America as a whole. So these Hollywood celebrities want the only people to be armed in America, a nation of 500 million guns, and a nation full of 3D printers, and very creative dudes who will dedicate their life to getting ghosts guns in the hands of people because they so value liberty. And the only thing defending you against tyranny is that rifle. Be careful. After, as per the Constitution, I'll say that. So they want the only people who have those rifles to be criminals and the incompetent cops who sit around outside for 50 minutes. Well, there goes your argument right there. You want the state to have guns, but the state's incompetent. Well, how do you hold the state accountable if you don't yourself have liberty devices? Oh, you can't. A person with a rifle is a citizen. A person without a rifle is called a slave. How do you hold them accountable if they're the only ones who are armed? It's like, you already call the police the biggest criminal gang in America, and you say you want them to be the only ones who have rifles. They sat outside for 15 minutes. The shooting before this, I don't remember the name of it. The cop rolls up on the scene, and keep in mind, this was a few years ago. Federal guidelines per Columbine. Go in. You're one cop on the scene. That's fine. You have training. The shooter doesn't. So he sits outside waiting for backup. I think he got prosecuted for it because he violated federal guidelines. It's like everyone knows, every cop knows about the federal guidelines. You just go in with what you have because you have all the tools necessary. It's like that's why you're getting paid. That's your duty of due care. You owe a duty to these people, to your salary, to it's fiduciary duty if you want to look at it that way. And there's a Supreme Court decisions on like what duty the police have to protect you, which is none. Though really they should be working to change that immediately. So you're saying like there's a whole history of cops who sit on their thumbs waiting for SWAT to arrive in violation of federal guidelines. You want them to be the only people who are armed. There goes your argument. There goes your argument right there. That none of your argument makes sense when you look at the cops and go, oh, they're incompetent and they're the only ones with rifles. Well, them and the criminals. So you have violent sociopathic criminals with rifles and you have low IQ corrupt cops with rifles. Why would you want to take rifles away from everyone else? Level the playing field. Make everyone subsidize rifles. Like you subsidize everything else. You gave $40 billion to Ukraine. It's like, oh, well, we're going to put a 223 in, a chicken in every pot and a 223 on every shelf. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone. So there goes the argument right there. None of your argument makes sense when, like, are they going on they're going on the assumption that they have armed guards who are competent. Yeah, because you're paying them $6 figures a year to guard you when you go out. Or the Secret Service and the Department of the Treasury are guarding political people. It's like, oh, the taxpayer pays for that. So the taxpayer pays for your protection, but not for our own. None of that makes sense. And again, it's not for hunting. It's not for the Second Amendment. It's to defeat tyranny by killing tyrants as per the Constitution. Oh, that dangerous talk of the Founding Fathers will have the FBI. Yeah, we're just knocking on the door. We're just doing a little welfare check. You said some things online. Oh yeah, I quoted the founding fathers. Yeah, well, that was a long time ago. Oh, oh, that's where we are now. Yeah, congratulations. That's where we are now. And the third and final point is the third and final point is the concept of it's not for hunting, it's not for self-defense, it's for tyranny. Do you trust the state so much that you want them to be the only ones armed? Well, you see what happens in other countries that are disarmed. And America just doesn't do some certain things against the liberty and dignity of their population because it's consent of the governed. And you're able to effectively assert that consent when you're armed. There's more to it than that, but that's about as far as I can go on YouTube. So, go get yourself something. Some liberty device. Some freedom pellets. And, honestly, white rice, too. Because it lasts a long time. White rice, I think, has the longest shelf life. And it's something like, for very little amount of money, you can have a couple of 100 pounds of stored white rice. And then you date it, and then you slowly use it. And then you slowly replace it. So, like, you always have a few 100 pounds. You go, why so much? Because you want to keep your neighbors sweet. It's like if you have so much food, but your neighbor doesn't. Well, it's like now you both have half the amount of food because you gotta. If you're trying to defend a neighborhood and your neighbor's hungry, it's like, well, you have to keep them fed, and you can keep them fed for a very small amount of money, which is where white rice and white rice comes in handy. It's like probably the cheapest, longest storage type of thing. But liberty devices and freedom pellets last a long time too. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, support the channel if you can. I'll see you guys all next episode.